Welcome to today's episode of The Heart of the Matter. Today we'll be talking about a growing problem in Nigeria, that is street children. And with us today, our guest, Mrs. Yemisi Wada, who is the coordinator of Haven for the Nigerian Child. Will throw a lot of light on what we can do, how significant the problem is, and so on. Yemisi, you're welcome to The Heart of the Matter.
Thank you very much.
I am a little surprised because your background is in the law. You studied law, you practiced law, and now you're looking after or helping street children. What brought that about?
Well, yeah, thank you very much. It's very funny. I never planned or I never knew that I would run an NGO. On my 40th birthday, at this stage I had my older children and I was back home as a stay-home mom for my two little boys. And it was my 40th birthday. I decided to do food packs and just give it not to street children but to needy people on the streets, you know. And it fell on a Sunday. So I naively made these food packs, got into my car with my nanny and drove along Uzumbambadiwe, where you normally see the beggars under the bridge. And out of the blue came a bunch of young boys, about 16-year-olds, out of nowhere. I had never seen them before. They attacked the car. In fact, it got so bad we had to drive away, do a U-turn, and then throw the food packs out to them out of the car because there were just two of us women in the car. And thereafter, I got curious. I wondered where they came from. Was there a boarding school? What was going on? And then I through a youth group in church, we went about and we found out that they were just children who lived on the streets. And they were mainly from Kuramo Beach. They were just on the road begging for alms from drivers. And then, like I said, I was back home, and I've always been a very busy person. So I decided to take it up, you know, and take it on. We made questionnaires, went around different areas of Lagos just to know how bad the problem was, because it was new, it was frightening.
When you talk about street children, the first thing that comes to my mind is Brazil.
Yeah.
You know, and it just seems un-African that people's children will find their way into living on the streets. So first of all, what is a street child?
Exactly. A street child is one who, even though you call him a street child, he actually has a home. In most cases, they have both family members. But due to negligence or due to some kind of abuse, has a neglect of love or care from a sensible adult, has found himself or herself going to the streets to make a living. There are different categories of street children. There are these ones who they're like opportunistic street children. There are those who their parents themselves send them onto the streets. There are those who are genuine street children. Genuine street children, I'll give you an example, are those who are born on the streets. For example, you often hear of when you hear mad women who are pregnant, and you wonder who's responsible for it. They give birth to these children, and
Children have to
fend for themselves. You know, we've met like 3 of them. Incidentally, they're called Miracle.
Okay.
You know, and so there are different categories of street children, but basically that's the general and wide definition of a street child.
How big is the problem? Let's not even talk about Nigeria, just Lagos to start with.
Yeah, you know, is one of the difficulties which we encounter. The notion of a street child, the phenomenon is new, almost. The concept is sort of new to us in my generation, and I'm sure yours, because we're used to an extended family system. I tell people all the time, there are 3 of us from my parents, but there has never been a time growing up with my parents, even till date that it's just been 3 of us and my parents in a nice nuclear family situation. But now, because of the, unfortunately, the rural areas are getting urbanized as well. There's a high divorce rate, the economics are bad, there's poverty, intense poverty in the land. People can't feed themselves, talk less of their children. Parents voluntarily put their children up to remand homes for crimes which normally a good spank would solve, just because they want the responsibility of feeding that child to be on somebody else, you know. And yeah, basically.
So here we have street children. What does Haven for the Nigerian Child do, or what are you trying to do to do your part to help them with the problem?
You see, when I decided to do this, I did a short course with Save the Children. Okay. It's an English-based organization, and they taught me 2 main things. One, no matter what, the home is always the first and naturally most secure place for every child. Then secondly, you know, it's okay to set up an organization or a home and just put street children, but most importantly, it's good to teach society to start to look after its own, so that you don't just take them bags and school shoes and then you move off. The problem remains. Try and let them start to think about being their brother's keeper. So basically what we do is that when we find the student, because you know, when I started, I said they're on the street, but it doesn't mean they don't have a home. Most of them have homes. So what we do is we gain their confidence, because it takes a hell of a lot. They don't just open up. I mean, it takes at least 7 interviews with a typical street child to get the truth about his name and where he's actually from. So we take time to do that with our social workers. Like I said, we now concentrate on Kuramo Lodge, Kuramo Beach. So we take time, we go, we give them questionnaires, they fill it. But you find out that each questionnaire they fill is a different answer. Eventually the truth.
So they are literate?
Oh, some of them are. A lot of them drop out of school because their parents can't afford to send them back to school, and they want to go back to school. Okay. We have many of those. A lot of them want to go to school. So
that's a problem that can be solved.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So that's what we do. We take them back home, reunite them with their parents where it is possible, or with an adult, maybe an auntie, in some cases grandmothers, and then we find sponsors for whatever they need at home. So that parent or that grandparents stop seeing that child as a burden, but more like a blessing. So they help us look after the children at home. So oftentimes when the child is misbehaving, you get the mother or the father calling us and saying, your child is misbehaving. And I say, oh, don't worry, I'll be on top of it, you know. So basically that's what we do.
So this is painstaking work.
Yes, it is.
Because you're spending a lot of time. Do you have a place you take the children to, or do you do all this work in situ at Kuramo Beach?
No, what we do is we have an office, and basically at Kuramo Beach we get to know them. From Kuramo Beach, when they give us the information, one of our social workers goes over there. Thank God also now for mobile phones. Okay. We phone, they have numbers, they have contacts. We phone, sometimes we invite the ones who have been looking for these children. We had a mother who had a child in Ibadan, left, the marriage broke, she came to Lagos, left the boy with her brother in Ibadan. The boy was 10. The brother started to abuse the boy, you know, not physically, not sexually, but physically. And when he couldn't take it anymore, he ran to Lagos, thinking Lagos was a small town like where he was coming from, Ibadan. When he got to Lagos, he realized, I can't find my mother. He found his way to Kuramo. We had to get the uncle, use the police, get information about the mother. We now trace the mother in Lagos. You know, she walked all the way from Iju to meet the social worker in Oshodi. She thought the child was dead. She'd been looking for him for 3 years. Wow. You know, so it's painstaking work because we have to do all this, locate the family, sometimes use the police, cajole, and then we take them home.
So you've got a team of workers, you've got social
Yes.
workers. About how many people?
There are 8 of us in total.
We're going to be back in a minute to
Okay.
continue talking about street children. Viewers, stay tuned. We'll be back with Heart of the Matter.
ọ̀dọ̀ màmá arúgbó ta ló mú ẹ lọ sọ́dọ̀ màmá arúgbó ìyà ń jẹ níbo ló máa ń sùn inú mọ́tò ló máa ń sùn inú mọ́tò ló máa ń sùn níbo ni màmá àti bàbá ẹ wá wà níbo náà wà Ìjẹ̀bú báwo ló ṣe dé pé ìwọ ló wá sí lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ fúnra ẹ̀ láti jẹ báwo ló ṣe dé pé ta ló fún ẹ lówó.
Welcome back to the Heart of the Matter, where we're talking about Nigeria's street children with Mrs. Yemisi Wada. I am awed by some of the things that you've been sharing about street children. What do these children get up to on a day-to-day basis?
Speaking about the children on Kuramo Beach, there's a company actually employed by the local government to look after the beach. And these children, in payment for being allowed to stay on the beach, of course, they're the obvious employees.
And I'm sure they're treated like slave employees.
Oh yes. Where they sleep, you should see where they sleep is right bang at the end of the beach, and they just lay cardboard pieces on the floor, on the sand, and they have some wooden structure. And in a wooden structure the size of this table, there are like 6 to 8 kids sleeping in there. So you can imagine the sanitation of that kind of areas, and you have like 50 odd types of these shelter there. You can imagine all kinds of things. And then they wake up in the morning, they say their prayers. They have a street daddy,
Okay.
who's in charge of them. He organizes prayers, and then they clean the beach, you know. And then, of course, from where they sleep, the shed next to them, or the building next to them, is a building on stilts, and there's a nightclub, there's a brothel, there are different kinds of pepper soup joints. So they work for these people. Some pay them, some don't, or some promise payment, and then at the end of the month the children ask for their money, and they're told they don't get it, and then they leave the beach and they go what they call go slow, which is the begging on the streets and the washing of your windshields and stuff for money. And I'll tell you something that would shock you. They say when they do, they work, they beg in the morning and through the night. They call it morning and night, like duty. A street child gets a minimum of 11,000 naira a day on begging. Well, guess what? They don't go to bed without, or wake up in the morning without 11,000 naira.
Where does that money go?
They steal it amongst themselves, you know, or they waste it.
Wow. Now, you talked about going to see some street children, and you had to go with mobile policemen.
Yeah. You know, when we wanted to start, like I told you, we had to go all around. We took these questionnaires to get to know what led them onto the streets. And when we went to Ojuelegba, and we also went to the train tracks in Agege, we had to go with mobile policemen, because our first experience, we had a nasty experience with area boys and the bus drivers, because They use these children as the conductors and other things, you know, peddle drugs. So they don't want you to have access to them. Really, they don't want you to take them off the streets. So they don't even want you talking to them. So by the next time we went, we were wiser. We went armed and with some money, so we could buy time with the children.
So we have a problem with street children.
Oh yes.
And we can't bury our heads in the sand.
It's a growing problem.
So what can be done to solve it?
Unfortunately, in Lagos State, you know, everybody comes to Lagos. Yeah. And because of that, all these street children, when they run away from home, they head to Lagos. So even if the Lagos State government had the finances to look after every child of its own, these ones are extra. If you take a poll of 100 street children, like on Kuramo Beach, only about 20 or 25 are actually from Lagos.
Okay, so they're coming from
Ogbomoso, they're coming from the east, they're coming from Oyo, they're coming from Ogun State, they're coming from all around. You know, they just get on the bus and they head to Lagos. So most of the children are not from Lagos. That's why invariably the first thing we do is to take them back home, you know. But for the state of Lagos, I've always been advocating for provision for residential vocational centers. Insofar as we might not be able to solve what takes them to the streets, we can use them so that they end up being not of criminals, but useful beings, you know. And the first thing is that people need to know that because they're on the streets, they're not children in conflict with the law. They're children who are running away from some abuse or something at home, and they have gone to find succor on the streets. So it's not right to pick them up and drop them in correctional centers with children who are actually in conflict with the law.
Is this happening?
Oh yes, that's because we don't have any residential vocational centers right now. So when they're picked up, and you see, naturally, because they've run away from home, the act of running away from home they feel is wrong. So when they run off and they get into Lagos, the first people that get them are those people, and the areas that they go to are areas where it's filled with people who are actually in conflict with the law. That's why Kuramo Beach, with all the brothels and all the armed robbers, that's where they go, you know. And that's why we need to find somewhere to put them, let them learn a trade. Let government build subsidized shops. You know, we can't all afford the same hairdressers, we can't afford to have the same. So you can have these subsidized shops so that when they graduate from these vocational centers, there's place where they're going, there's employment for them. And you know, the ones that we have actually sent to learn a trade, you won't believe how proud they are. And that's what is rewarding for me. When they write you the love letters telling you thank you, because they never thought, they're used to thinking, oh, it's not going to be like that.
About how many success stories do you have?
So far, 31 and still counting.
Wow. That's so these are people that you've met on the streets?
Yes.
You've taken them out
of the streets.
And so they're now gainfully employed or self-employed?
Or most of them in school. We even have 2 in government boarding school.
So what you're saying in essence is that you want to kind of recycle these children out of off the streets. They need vocational training, and if you could have a center, that would be wonderful. A residential center, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would help towards the skills acquisition that you need to do for them. And then it takes a lot of people to help and support.
Yes, and also
to understand what you're doing.
We also need to we have an advocacy group as well, because we need to learn to be our brother's keeper. See, a lot of these children, to their parents, give them to their relatives or people they know on the assumption that, on the belief that they're coming to give them employment in Lagos. Please stop employing children as help. You know, that once there's no market for that.
Do you have an age limit that you can give us?
Well, really, the Employment Act says a child 14 can work with the consent of the parents. But
14 is young.
14 is young. I mean, we have our own children. So if you even have to get a 14-year-old, ensure that that 14-year-old gets to go to school. Yeah. I mean, let's be educated about these sort of things, you know, and let's show how enlightened we are. Don't employ a 14-year-old to look after your children. And it's amazing how many homes you go and you see these minors looking after children, tending shops. It's not fair. And then also, we need to train people. We go around to Obalende, we go to these places and we tell people, if your neighbor brings in some children from out of state and their own children go to school and these children don't, talk to somebody about it. We now have a very effective Ministry for Women Affairs, thanks to the current Deputy Governor. When she was the Lagos State Minister for Commissioner for Women Affairs, she was very proactive. She still is. I think it's a passion she has. And there are numbers you can call. I don't have them on me now, but
we'll put them on the screen.
Yes. So if you can call those numbers, there are people that they would reach out. So if you have, don't keep quiet. You know, things like this, we need to learn to be our brother's keeper, you know. And if you have children in school who, after a while, they don't show up, say something. Let somebody go and find out what's going on.
So what else can we do to help solve this problem?
Well, I guess we can pray.
Yeah.
We can educate others. We can educate family members. For example, one of the children that ran away, you know, his problem was that he had learning difficulties. So it was just a question of being teased at school for not doing very well. We had to go to the parents and change his school and put him in a lower class in a different school. You know, and now he's doing well. He's in JS. He's just taking his JSS 3 exams, and he's happy. You know, he's happy. So his problem wasn't home. His problem was being teased. So this is all part of what it's all new to our culture, you know. So it's always talking to people, going, you know, like you have a fantastic thing in Guiding Lights where they go to Obalende to feed. They go also to do health checks. We try and do that, but we're small in trying to speak to the leaders and speaking to the family about this type of difficulties and how to go about them.
And we also need to teach families that when there's a fallout in the family, the children
suffer. Definitely.
So there's so much that you can do out there to help with the street children problem in Nigeria. Yemisi, we're really thrilled to have had you on this program.
Thank you.
It's been a time in which we have all learned quite a lot, and we are grateful for the work that you are doing with children. Viewers, you can help with this problem. Mrs. Wada has told you some of the things that you can do to make your contribution. Doesn't have to be big, but whatever contribution you can make would be appreciated. We'll be back again with another topic, same time next week. And until we see you next week, stay blessed.